Specialist Phil and Alexa are back with another one of our season 40 winner retrospectives. And today we are joined by Missy Payne, who will be talking all about Natalie Anderson from San Juan del Sur. Missy, thank you so much for joining us. We're super excited to have you here. This should
Thanks
be
for
pretty
having
fun.
me. Yeah, it'll be really fun.
Yeah, and I know it's going to be interesting to talk about Natalie because it was such a weird season, San Juan del Sur, being that everybody was playing with loved ones. And on this season, there's only one pair of loved ones, and Rob and Amber. But she's starting with like a little bit fresher of like a cleaner slate here than she did there because she had Nadia out there, and everybody kind of knew them from The Amazing Race anyway. So
yeah.
Totally different strategy, I feel like, going into this one. But we'll talk about it because Natalie generally considered one of the best female winners, like across the board by most people. So. Well, I want to hear everything that Natalie was doing behind the scenes that we didn't necessarily get to
good
see,
dad,
so.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how much time do we have? I'm just kidding. I can tell you everything about Natalie because Natalie and I are actually very close, and we became close through on the show, and then obviously after as well, post show. But I could have beat her. That's all I have to say. I could have.
You heard it here first.
Had I not torn up my ankle, I would have voted Natalie off. And so I felt so guilty. There was this whole human person that came out in me, which I think that, I think everybody has their opinion when they're sitting back watching any reality show, but especially Survivor and especially the fans of this show, they get so involved in it. And I think people did have opinions about all of us, and they still do. But from player to player, Natalie's a badass, and she's, I will say that being from Sri Lanka helps because, like, who doesn't love an accent just to start? I mean, just the accent from Americans' perspective. I mean, even some of the people, the speakers that I listen to now, I mean, Australia or England or, the Brits or whatever. And then we had a lot of South Africans that were on our production team on the island. And so I would just start with that. I would just say, she could kind of suck you in with, oh my God, Missy, like I went to the doctor and then that in and of itself kind of sucks you in to love her. And it could work against them too. Her sister, I think obviously getting voted off first came across maybe a little more heavy on the accent, didn't totally help her. But Natalie had this sweet spot just for starters, and she could use that to her benefit. And I watched her do it one night to be like, kind of sort of that there was this line down communication wise, maybe because of the language barrier. And I was going, you're such a liar.
Yeah.
So,
is that you?
my phone's so crazy right now. Sorry.
You're all good.
It's totally fine.
It's more people calling me to interview about Survivor.
There you go. That's it.
Very
Everybody's
popular.
stealing our idea.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. They are stealing your idea. So that would be the first thing. I mean, that was kind of her just shoe in. And then the second piece is that she was so strong physically that we would like get to a challenge and I'd start laughing out loud because I'd be like, there's no way I can beat her in this. Like, no way. But I could beat her here. My wisdom and my experience on the planet, obviously, she could be my daughter. So that was interesting as well. I think that she even said at one of the earliest tribal councils, she was like, Jeff, we're just a hot mess. But that's because she didn't know how to play either. I mean, all of us, the new people sort of to the game, and I use that word loosely. It's not like I wasn't a fan of the show, but I mean, there were certain people that were players who were huge fans of the show that tried for 10 years to get on. And I mean, Natalie, by default, because they were on Amazing Race, our season was so different because they were typecasting. They really wanted to have these couples be on our season. So we were all sort of lollygagging along, and the production team was like, when are we going to start playing?
Yeah.
So there was
for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. But she was a quick study. So was I. And that's why I knew teaming up with her would be smart. And so I aligned with her, out of the gates. But she deserved to win for sure. I will give her that. She, she pulled some fast ones, and like I said, with my ankle, that was tough. And as family, she was helpful to me as sort of that daughter figure. I mean, at one point, I think she literally like picked me up, threw me over her shoulder to get me somewhere because I couldn't walk after day 30.
Yeah.
And they were just like, let's go. So I'll give her that. But it'll be interesting to see her play again. Very interesting. I think she will certainly be favored because she was very well liked in the world, in our whole cast, but also I think in the world of Survivor, she's been missed. So it should be interesting to see.
Yeah, and it's an interesting perspective you can give here because you sat with her at Final 3, and we only have maybe one or two other people who have done that, who are kind of doing this here. So you could almost look at what Natalie did that gave her the victory, and then also like what she was able to beat because you were sitting there and the game you played, obviously. So you can kind of maybe see who she could do well against and who you think maybe she wouldn't do well against coming up on this season. Yeah.
I think for her victory, it was interesting because by the time we got to Final 3, I don't think what people realize that are the viewers is that when people get voted off, not the first 10 or 8 or 10 or whatever that number is, but the people that make jury, they create their own alliances because they're coming to watch every single tribal. And they can't speak to us and we can't speak to them. But it is interesting because it takes literally one person in an alliance and in life to shift somebody's perspective. You can do it. The human mind is tricky. And I learned a lot about that it will play tricks on you and people can shift your thinking like that. Natalie had this mentality of sort of learning very quickly to get in with the bros. And we had such a heavy male number on our jury, and so she was smart. She was very smart. Jeremy was a huge part of her victory and her win because he did get up and say, and I can't remember exactly how much of this was shown because you guys, viewers don't see everything that occurred, but basically he was right. He's like, just give it to the person who played the best game, all in all. Like, it's not about, and I think that's the other piece that people miss too. When we get to Final Tribal, there's so much that has occurred and everybody's fighting for that spot. But yet, even I know, and in the most humble way I could say, she deserved to win. I mean, I really wanted to win and I could have won. Again, the injury for me was just such a derail. But she deserved it. And I think that how she got there, one of her strategies was to morph into and be a chameleon when it comes to who you're gonna to get along with, and that was the whole bro community.
Yeah,
and I think I'm looking at her starting tribe.
It's pretty broy.
It's very broy. Alexa, do you have it up in front of you? Do you want to?
I want to see it.
That is?
I do. So she's actually. This is probably a huge advantage for her. She's actually starting on a tribe with Jeremy, so that's fantastic for her. It sounds like.
Oh yeah.
She has Jeremy, Boston Rob, Ethan, Ben, and Adam Klein. And then for women, she's with Danny Boatwright, Denise, Michelle Fitzgerald, and Parvati.
Wow.
That's a tribe.
Okay, so strong women.
Strong women who are also broy. Like Michelle got along with Scott and Jason really well.
Parvati, the biggest word on the earth. Like she worked her way in.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Yeah. The only one, I mean, Denise, maybe not so much. Well, I don't know, but out of those four, golly. And I mean, just starting off with Jeremy, I mean, that's just in and of itself. I mean, power couple. Sorry.
Exactly.
Jeremy's a great player. I mean, I will never forget the night that we blindsided him and I didn't want to be in on it so bad. Like the human person comes out and you can't help but not. I think more so for our season, just because it was so emotional. When you're with a loved one on that show, the emotional piece comes out. It's so much bigger than people realize. And I always said if I ever went back, the only way I would play was if I didn't have to play with Baylor. And I think we play a different game. And so will Natalie. She will. I mean, she's going to be like insane from day one, just, and strategic. So it's interesting.
And we didn't get to see much of Hunapu early on because you guys kept winning, and it was Cleopa who lost and lost and lost. And then when we finally do see it, it's the Drew Christie boot, which is just amazing, and it shows how much the women were really in control of that tribe, despite the fact that all the men thought they were. And I believe Natalie was on the right side of that, right? Natalie and everybody was on the right side of that vote.
Well, what happened was it was really close to leaving for tribal. So, usually the decision's made quite a while before you go. Although you don't have a watch, so you don't really know what time is passing. Mm-hmm. But Drew had to come apart. I mean, he literally had to come apart. And I remember John even looking at him going, dude, easy. Because he was kind of attacking me. And John stood up for me. And so at that point I was like, okay,
this guy's out.
Cut him. Yeah. Yeah. And so then I went to Natalie and said, let's just take him out. I mean, he can go now, because everybody had said, are y'all aligned? And I just, it was, he had to come apart, and you can't do that, especially that close to tribal when it's, he swayed the decision against him pretty quickly.
She's in such a fine spot.
One of the best episodes. It's so just over the top, and it's just the Drew Christie show, and then it's just, and he goes home.
And he goes home.
And he goes home.
Yep.
So on this season, being that there's actually only one couple who's on here with Rob and Amber, she's starting on a tribe with Rob. Do you think that if they lose that first tribal, is that somebody she goes after right away, or does just their personalities mesh so well that she wouldn't go after somebody like that early?
Well, I think that she's going to know from experience that couples are, especially blood, is, I mean, they're not blood, but they're, I mean, you know what I mean? I think close. That, close. I just, a loved one is dangerous. It's just dangerous. I think that would be a great target if they don't, but they should split them up, because even in the end of our season, we talked a lot about Natalie was nervous that Baylor and I were going to go to the end together. And at that point, if we were sitting in final three, Missy, Baylor, Natalie, she was smart. She was smart to split that up, because even though my child said in one of the initial interviews that she would vote me off. I said, okay, what is your strategy? Really? I mean, come on. If you win the million, I win the million. If I win the million, you win the million. Yeah. What is wrong with you? But I think Natalie saw that, because I think, Baylor was piggybacking off me for a long, long time, and somewhat off Natalie. We were all three very close, and that was like a sister, and I was like her mom. But I do think that you split those people up. I mean, you have to, because the further along a couple goes, then you've got two people that are thinking the exact same way. I mean, you don't have anybody to trust out there, usually on that show, except when you're on a blood versus water like we were, where for a fact that person's telling you the truth. Even though my kid would have voted me off, she might have told me before, I'm going to vote you off. The beauty of it is,
I had the respect to tell you.
Thank you. I beat her. I just want to make sure we get that out.
Oh no, it's clear. I was a huge Baylor fan. I was convinced that Baylor was going to win that season when it was airing, and that didn't happen. So
no, it did not happen. I love her, but I mean, the very beginning, that interview, I'll never forget. I tell that story all the time when I speak. My kid was going to vote me off, and I said I would take the dagger for you.
Yeah.
Do you think she felt bad after that?
No.
I wouldn't feel bad either if my mom said the same thing. It's like, well, that's the mother role. I'm the kid.
Exactly.
I'm breaking out of that.
Do you think that, and this is a season where everyone's a little intermixed with each other, do you think people might be scared that she and Jeremy are starting on the same tribe? Because they're obviously not a couple, but they're about as close as they can be.
Okay, but who knows that?
Well, they're all going to know that they started on the same tribe in San Juan del Sur.
But I'm saying
they studied.
Yeah, but he got voted off. He was first in jury, so they were a long time apart. So I don't know that people really realize to what level that connection happened, because after we blindsided him and she was furious, and I had to go clean that mess up because of John. But she played it off very well, because you can't act like that bugs you, or you'll be the next one to go. And so, I don't know. I mean, they better play it off that they're not together. That would be the smartest thing to do. And I think they're bigger and smarter than that. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like just because he was voted off when he was, there was enough time that passed that people sort of might have forgotten. unless you're, really going back and studying the early episodes of some of the conversations and things. But
she is starting with Adam Klein, who I would say is probably the biggest fan who's on the season. So he might have done that, but I also think that he knows Jeremy kind of before the season. So if anything, he'd probably look at it as an advantage of I can work with Jeremy and Natalie more than I want to get rid of one of them, because really Natalie especially to me doesn't feel like the most threatening female out there, though maybe she should be, because you have Parvati, because you have Sandra, because you have Kim Spradlin. You have these just bigger names than Natalie's that I think are going to take some of the target off of her early on. And then before you know it, you've hit the merge and it's like, all right, how are we going to get rid of her? Because it needs to happen soon. So I don't know. I think she should be looked at earlier, but I think she's gonna be able to really get in well with the tribe she's on. I think she's gonna do really well with that.
I think she's do really well, and I would also say that the other sort of powerhouse women, which any woman that won that show, the powerhouse, I would have to say that I would look at the year that they played, and I say that only by generation. So Natalie's advantage is, she's close to that millennial. Not really. She's more of her generation's a little older because she's 28-ish or something. But it's a different game. It's a different game than that was played a long time ago when Kim played, and when it's just a different game. And so, I don't know. I think she's gonna, if she'll really play it right, and if she'll really get back into the mode of standing back and observing and not coming across as this powerhouse athletic, then I think they really will all embrace and work with her, and it won't, work against her.
Who do you think, if you're looking at this cast, and we can give you the other tribe if you need us to?
Yeah, I want the other tribe. Tell me to refresh my memory here.
All right. So the other tribe, we have Amber, Kim, Sandra, Sarah, Sophie. And then the males are Nick, Wilson, Tony, Tyson, Wendell, and Yule. So my question would be, who do you think that she never works with on the season? Is there somebody who to you is I don't know, I guess John Rocker is a good example. She was never going to work with John Rocker out there on Survivor.
Didn't seem like a dynamic duo.
No one's going to work with John Rocker. There's no way she'd work with Tony. No way.
That's interesting. They both have the North Jersey thing.
That's my prediction.
Too explosive.
She may use that if, obviously if they get to merge but I don't know. That's my gut. He's too sneaky. That's not Natalie's approach. At the end of the day, let me think. I don't know if there's anybody else I would say out of the gates. Just that's not, that was my knee-jerk reaction gut, but
do you think some of the legends maybe are people she wouldn't want to touch, like Sandra, Parvati, Boston Rob? And I call them, I think of them more as legends just because of how many times they've played. Queen stays queen with Sandra. Do you think she doesn't play with them, or do you think she will?
Well, again, my take on Natalie and how just my experience with her is that she's not going to come in and be super over the top, even probably strategizing out of the gates. I think she's really going to be smart. And I think she knows, they all know they're a threat, but I think, and everybody has their threatening ways about them. But I do think if she will play the way she played on our season, which kind of was sort of a natural, because again, she didn't know what she was doing. There wasn't a lot of game strategizing going in, because nobody knew what they were doing, kind of thing. It just goes back to Jeff, we're just a hot mess. At Tribal. And so if she will play that way, if her approach would be that, then I feel like that she has a good shot at winding her way through and navigating sort of really where she should land in alliances.
Yeah. And you were saying with the hot mess, it's like, you also said there's this casting choice in that season where you want it to kind of be, sorry, I'm hearing myself back a bit, but you kind of want it to be like, okay, we need Wes and Keith because it's the older guy and the young guy, and they're both firefighters, and Wes is a bigger fan, but Keith is going to be great TV. And like they were kind of looking at it that way. And on this season, that's not happening. There's no hot mess here because every one of these players won. And do you think
anti-hot mess?
Yeah, I think it was Jeremy who said it's easier to play with people who know how to play the game than people who don't. Do you think that Natalie does better maybe on a season with people that are better players, and I'm, air quotes here, but better players, or do you think that she'll actually have a harder time maybe?
Well, if I were Natalie, I'd be on the phone with Jeremy trying to figure out how do you play? Because I mean,
what you up to?
Exactly. What's going on? Can you tell me how you did this or that? I mean, again, it's so hard to predict because you just don't know until you get into the first few days and weeks of play to sort of know how they're going to do. I mean, it's hard, and it's even hard for me to predict, especially with this cast, because man, everybody's approach is going to be, it's just going to be interesting, right? It's going to be really interesting to see. I think she's a very quick study though, like I said, and she's smart, and she's, she picked it up so quickly. And I think that now, obviously, she studied the game before she went this time. She really probably did become a better student.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely something that Natalie would
sense.
Yeah, I think
this season is not a handout. I mean, they were very intentional on who they picked and how they picked. And so not anybody on this season just cruises in just because they have an identical twin sister and they were on Amazing Race.
Exactly. Which definitely, and I will say, when San Juan del Sur was announced, Natalie and Nadia, I had seen them on The Amazing Race, and I guess it was 2 seasons before that, and I was like, I've had enough. I don't need this on Survivor now. And when Nadia went home, it was the best thing for Natalie.
Yes.
Because it took her out of that, like, it's going to be 20. And then finally it's just Natalie. And she had to just do it all on her own. And I think that was perfect. I think it helped her build a fan base, because I think if it was her and Nadia the entire game, I probably would have just been like, oh God, it was The Amazing Race the third time. Like, I can't do this.
Yeah, exactly. Let me out. Yeah. It'll be, I can't wait to see how, out of the gates, how this begins. We'll have to just see.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, a lot of seasons people will, especially on like new player seasons, they'll say, oh, I'm going to hang back. I want to be normal. And I think on this one, everyone's just going to come out really hot.
Well, I think they're going to have to. I mean, I don't think anybody's sitting around, I mean, like you said, you didn't see much of Hunapu. I mean, there was quite a bit of just goofballness going on between the Drew and John show, and sort of fantasizing about, okay, if we were to kill that squirrel with one shot, I mean, things like that. I mean, we're like, what's going on? Or, push-up contest, or, I mean, things, when you're winning all that time, you take for granted that you're supposed to be playing the game continually because you're just not in that panic mode. But I think that's life too. I mean, when you get shoved into wow, I have to sort of have a strategy here, then you really come out like gangbusters. But this is going to be interesting to see how it begins and how it ends.
I think we talked with Kelly Wentworth a bit about that, where she was saying that, like, you don't understand how broy that Hunapu tribe was. Like, it was a different level of broy.
It was over the top. I mean, yeah, there was lots of us going, okay, this is so offensive. Please, dear Lord, am I really here right now? Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Alexa, do you want to get into the 2 questions we have to ask everybody on here?
Yes, we have 2 questions we ask everyone. So first one, where do you think Natalie is actually going to place? You can be specific. You can say merge. You can say Final 4, fire making loser, whatever you prefer. I'm not sure if she'll be listening to this, so you can be as nicer as
so hard to predict. I think she'll for sure make the merge.
Okay,
I like that. And then if Natalie couldn't win, or if Natalie's not going to win, who do you think out of everyone else we've listed will win? Everyone's had a different answer for this one. Jeremy has actually been a very popular pick.
Jeremy's just really a popular person, but the issue at hand now is that, cat's out of the bag. We know all these people's stories, and he's doing pretty good now. Like he's got a family and everybody's happy. And so there's not this really sob story of he's the firefighter that can't afford to whatever. I mean, I don't know that he even used that word, but I'm just saying now that the cat's out of the bag, it's kind of like, so nobody's going to have any emotional tie to anyone, right? No one's going to be like, oh man. And nobody's going to be, the advantage for Jeremy would be that if he sits on final 3 that, I don't know, they're just not going to hand him, no one's going to listen to that story and be like, okay, well, we have to let him win because of, right? Mm-hmm. So he's going to have a different approach. God, I don't know. This is a hard one, you all. This is a really, really tough one for me because I have my favorites and I have, and we're about to see Boston Rob and Sandra. I don't know. It's hard. I don't know.
We can't let you off the hook that easy, Missy. We can't let you off the hook that easy.
You can be biased. You can just pick a favorite.
That's it. I mean, that's what I've been doing the entire time. It's just the easiest way to do it because I don't know what the heck's going to happen. I
know, but I don't like to lose. So this is
there you go.
Within myself to be like, I predicted that. I'm going to give it to Natalie. She's going to win. I'm just going to.
Wow.
Yeah, she's going to win. I
love the confidence.
She's going to win.
I love it. But if it can't be Natalie, who would it be? If it can't be. Because we've had some people pick their person to win. We have had that.
What do I get if I do it right?
You get pride. We have the other survivors. You can be like, I got that right, and you.
This is strictly pride, but we can certainly sweeten the deal.
All right, fine. If it's not Natalie, I'll give it to Jeremy.
Okay.
There it is.
All right. Add it to the list there.
How many people?
You're the 4th.
Wow.
And you're the 12th person 13th person we've interviewed. So 13th person.
It's a good retention rate.
That is pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Give it to Jeremy.
I love it. I think I had Natalie. I did a boot list before it came out. I had Natalie finishing 9th. So I agree with you. She makes the merge. But I do think that she's going to be seen as more of a threatening player if she gets to the end. And I think that there's certain people when you look at this who you say, I could probably beat them in a final tribal situation. And you were just talking about Jeremy and his speech at the end, but he also sat next to Spencer and Tasha who weren't going to get any votes. Mm-hmm. Whereas Natalie had to sit against 2 people who had their loved ones on the jury. Mm-hmm. And I think Jacqueline got another vote on top of that. I'm not sure who voted for her, but so she had to sit next to people who already had votes out there on the jury. And somebody like Adam Klein, people might be going into this season saying, well, he won 10-0, but he beat Hannah and Ken, who everybody claims they would have beaten. So I think Natalie is somebody that people might be worried about sitting next to at a final tribal. And some of these other players, I'm not really worried if I sit next to Tony at a final tribal.
Yeah.
I'm really not.
Yeah, we'll just see how it shakes out.
We'll have to see how it shakes out. I like that we still got you to give an answer there, though, Missy. You really tried to force the issue there. You tried to avoid it, but we weren't going to let.
I hope I'm right.
We weren't going to let that happen.
I understand.
I think so.
I love it. All right, Alexa. What else do we have here? That's always our go-to. Those are our 2 big questions.
I know you're on a time limit, Missy. So any closing thoughts? We
can talk about what I'm doing.
Oh, let's do that.
Please talk about that
because that would be awesome. So
let's hear it.
So from my experience on that crazy journey, I started public speaking, which I think not started. I always have, but I used it as a platform to create a leadership program for young adults. And then it's springboarded into corporate. And I've been doing quite a bit of it over the course of the past 5 years. Started a nonprofit, which has been amazingly rewarding to me to give back to young adults who need funding for their performing arts or athletics or what their passion and drive is. And from that came this amazing leadership program. And I actually wrote a book and I have one. It's called The Invisible 7. And The Invisible 7 is a handbook with 7 character traits that we're all born with, but they lay dormant until we tap into them. And how do we do that? And it's service to others. It's self-discipline and self-discovery. And in the handbook, there's challenges and activities to do for each trait that takes the reader participant group to an uncomfortable place and makes them comfortable in that uncomfortable place. And it's been really interesting to see the groups that are doing this, because it's transforming lives. And every single chapter opens with a story about me on Survivor, which is kind of fun. And every chapter closes with a personal story about me, how that character trait ties in. And so I start out with equality, and then I go to humility, integrity, resilience, self-discipline, compassion, generosity. And all 7 of these are what came out of my experience on that island, because you had to have all of those. If you didn't, you were truly going to massively fail. And it's been interesting, because I also wanted to come home and say, how do you share this? How do you share an experience like this where people are going to get it? Because my brother was in the Navy, and he used to always come home and tell these stories about his military experiences, and kind of sit there and sort of scratch your head and go, wow, that's interesting. And okay. But when you have to experience something and there's application to it, you get the feeling of it. And so then I could show the correlation between my time on the island and, okay, everybody's living on an island. Everybody has a Survivor story. Just because I played the game, you two are now playing a game in life. And that's what's fun about it. And so currently I'm working on the Oklahoma State University, go Pokes, campus with college students and getting to work on this project. So that's kind of fun for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. So do you think that this is a book that if somebody found out they were going on Survivor, they should read this and start to do these exercises and all of that to get themselves ready and prepare them? Do you wish you would have had this before you went out there?
I do. And I will say that I also wrote a version for people when they get voted off, because it's such a mental mind game. When you get voted off, you're trying to like sort of put those pieces back together of, is this real life or not? Like the Truman Show. That's what I felt like I was on after I got off the show. But yeah, I mean, from just from hearing testimony, not just because it's my book, and I actually didn't even want my picture on it. I was like, look, this is just a vehicle for people to better themselves as a human being. It really does. It really provokes a lot of emotion and a lot of, it just sparks right here, your heart, which I think is hugely important. And what I found out from working with all these different groups of people I've been working with for the course of the past, I mean, I was a secondary ed teacher forever. I owned a competitive cheerleading gym. So I've worked with kids for a long, long time. But over this past 4 or 5 years, working with all these different groups, going in and leading these workshops with the Invisible 7, if you strip away people's elements like they do on Survivor, you take away their phone, their computer, take away the color of their skin, their socioeconomic background, their family dynamics, you take all of that away. Everybody wants the same thing, and that's to be valued and loved as a human being, period. So the experiment of Survivor really tests that in the human being, because the backstabbing and the lying and all of that part is very difficult for the human little psyche. It messes with your soul. So
and it's so different from what you're saying that everyone's looking for.
Yes.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
I like that you did the version where what happens when you get voted out, but you weren't voted out, Missy. You were never voted.
I was never voted off.
I know.
As a matter of fact, I always giggle because Baylor had so many votes against her too, and
she might have the record.
She might have the record. That's pretty funny.
I love that. But no, that's great. That sounds like a really cool idea. And honestly, I wasn't familiar with it until we were like, oh, we're going to have Missy come on and she's going to do one of these interviews with us. I was like, I'm going to look up what she's up to now. And I was like, oh, this is a pretty cool idea.
Theinvisible7.com. Go there, and it's the number 7, and you can purchase the book, or I'm happy to come do workshops in your neck of the woods.
Oh, I like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
You heard it here.
Sure.
Yeah.
And for you guys, in the back of every chapter is TPQs, which are thought-provoking questions.
Oh, I like those.
Yes. And so I set it up for each character trait, so you guys can use them on your castings and on your interviews. And
yeah, we'll have to check this out. I may or may not have just bought one, so we'll see what happens.
It is September 23rd. I'm pretty sure Alexa just bought one. When she's reading this, like during season 39, all of our podcasting, that's how you know that Alexa bought it already.
I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, for those of you who are listening to this in either December or January, make sure to buy a book. It's in theinvisible7.com. That was fantastic, Missy. We absolutely loved having you on. really happy to hear what you're doing. And thank you. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you guys so much for including me, and see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
See what happens.
All righty.
Right. Bye.
Bye-bye.